Welcome to the Frontier Leader Show. Today, Martin is talking to Mark Schaefer.
There's a real cautionary tale in my book about this transformation, is that we have to be really careful that when we begin to look at this technological implementation, that we don't strip out the DNA of our brand. I mean, if you are known for your humanity, for your service levels, for your friendliness, and you start to strip that out, you've got to be very, very careful that you're not just ruining your brand. And we're starting to see that as well. That's part of the backlash. So I think we've got to be very, very careful about this to balance the opportunity of AI, the cost savings of AI, and not over-indexing on technology and maybe harming our brand.
Hello and welcome to the Frontier Leader Show. My name is Martin Wheatley, and each week I speak to leaders, coaches, practitioners and technologists working out what good leadership looks like in an AI-shaped world. While you still have the app open, if you can hit follow or subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next episode. And if you're on practical starting point for leading with AI, I have a growing number of resources available at theAIleaderlab.com, and the link will be in the show notes. But today we are joined by Mark Schaefer. Mark is a globally recognized author, keynote speaker and futurist, as well as a business consultant who blogs at Grow, one of the top 5 marketing blogs in the world. He has many global clients under his belt, including Pfizer, Cisco, P&G, Dell, Adidas. The list goes on and on. He teaches graduate marketing classes at Rutgers University and has written 12 best-selling books, the most recent one being one that came out in September 2025, titled How AI Changes Your Customers. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Martin. It's such an interesting topic.
Certainly. And look, thank you for your time on this. And first of all, your book is really good. I have listened to it. And I think, the one thing I wanted to call out, which you made a point of in your first chapter, is the first business book that I have ever heard the reference to turd and rear end in a business book.
Quite proud of that. Quite proud of that.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself and what prompted the writing of this book.
As I reflect on my career, it's really been a series of experiments. I sort of have a rule in my life, like when something feels scary to me, that's a signal that I should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, more often than not, it's paid off. So I'm a very curious person, always ready to just test what's new, what's happening. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an early adopter. I don't have the patience for that, but I'm a fast follower. I think what I'm best known for is seeing what is going to happen next, kind of thinking through how the trends are coming together to show us what's happening next. So I have a pretty good track record of that, sort of naming what's going to come at us next. And I got interested in the topic of this new book. It's really about the psychology of AI. And I wasn't really planning to write this book. I had just spent 2 years working on sort of an epic book called Audacious: How Humans Win in an AI Marketing World, talking about the human AI processes and where humans will fit in this great creative challenge ahead of us. And then last spring, I was asked to participate in a global study. Some researchers brought together 300 futurists to answer an impossible question: how will AI change humanity by 2035? And when I saw the final report, it was captivating because on certain topics, there was consensus. These futurists, the majority of these futurists thought humanity is being rewired right in front of our eyes, and there's no going back. Now, I sort of look at everything through a business and marketing lens. So what I was interested in is, well, look, if AI is changing humanity and there's no going back, that means it's changing the psychology of our customers. And businesses really need to know about this, and nobody's talking about it. talking about prompting. We're talking about reworking our processes, business transformation, but nobody's really talking about how AI is impacting us as human beings. I thought this was fascinating. I have a master's degree in psychology, so I always kind of look at things through that lens anyway. And that's what prompted me to write the book. I just thought it was a big idea that needed to get out into the world.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, a lot of the conversations I'm involved with are all about how can we make people faster? How can we make it more
Yeah,
efficient?
right.
It's always very process driven.
It's about the money.
It's always about the money. It's always about how we can do things, or a lot of the time, how we can do things with less people as well, which is quite
Normal.
interesting.
Normal.
And yeah, your book, obviously, like you said, it leans more towards the whole how does a customer change, which is fascinating because a lot of people, like you said, aren't considering that yet. And as a community, as a civilization at whole, the kind of technology is having such an impact in terms of how people learn and develop their own skills. So how has that conversation changed with the conversations you're having since you brought the book out? Have you noticed a change in that yet, or is it still early days?
Well, what I'm noticing is that a lot of the ideas I brought up in the book are starting to show up in the news, right? So we have this idea of cognitive offloading. Where there's good things to it, there's bad things to it. This is the process of handing over to AI tasks, cognitive processes that maybe we would normally do ourselves. A good example of that would be reading a map. I haven't opened up a paper map in at least 5 or 6 years, I would say, and I probably will never open one again. So that is a useful way to offload this cognitive process. Part of the implication is we may have a generation coming next that will never know how to read a map. Now, is that okay? Maybe, but now we start to get into other examples where students can get through school without reading a book, without studying, without researching, because they could just hand over everything to AI. And so if that occurs, then it's not just cognitive offloading, it's cognitive surrender. And it could be changing us and harming us in many ways if we can't discern, if we can't ask questions. There was a study, I think it was Wharton. It came out, no, excuse me, it's MIT. Study came out last week that showed they did this test with students, and something like 73% of the people just took whatever answer AI gave them and used that as the answer. And the test was the answers were wrong. So that's an example where people are just offloading some important thought process. Now, you start to think about, well, my goodness, what does that mean for businesses? If you're comparing brands, that means you have to choose. That means you have to think. That means you have to work. Well, if people aren't thinking and working, what does that mean? What are the implications? What about introducing a new product and you have to learn how to use it? And people don't want to learn how to use it. They don't want to think anymore. And then when you start getting into B2B, the implications are even more interesting. So that's just one example, the cognitive offloading that you're starting to see pop up in the news. It's starting to pop up in research. It's become a big issue with education. Another issue that's been bubbling up in the news is relationships with non-human entities, right? The number that I had in the book, which again is, 6 months old and probably already out of date, is something like 8% of Gen Z had a significant, meaningful, even romantic relationship with an AI bot. We're starting to see that percolate in the news. There was a story recently where someone in Japan married an AI bot.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I don't know how that holds up legally, but it's something that we can expect. So as AI becomes a best friend, what's that mean? When AI becomes our decision maker, what does that mean? When AI becomes our therapist, which is the number one use of AI, by the way, what does that mean? So, I mean, when you start thinking it through, there are just profound implications for our businesses, for marketing, for sales, for leadership. And so, I mean, that's why I think it's a very interesting, exciting book. As you hinted at earlier, it's also a fun book to read. I have some humor in there, because you can't be scared of AI all the time, right? Got to have a little humor in there. So it's sprinkled. There's a few dad jokes salted in there. Yeah. So I just think it's the right book at the right time.
No, I agree with you. I think when I listen to it rather than read it, I listen to it on Audible, as I tend to consume most of my information now. But just coming back to the relationship piece and the counselling example. I know the one in your book where it was it MJ and Donatello. I mean, that was good but scary at the same time. That person had built up that relationship. And perhaps you can just elaborate on that example, just for the sake of the listeners.
Well, I was very intentional about that example because it's actually a positive example of AI intervening with the circumstances of a neurodivergent person who was in trouble. And the reason I included that is because as you read the story, it doesn't really turn out how you expect. Because most of the stories today, I mean, gosh, this is another thing, in the news all the time about, seems like at least once a month, we see some story about AI encouraging someone to commit suicide. Weird stuff. But I wanted to show this other dimension of AI that, look, if you don't have a friend, you can't afford a therapist, there is a role with AI. Even the therapists acknowledge there can be a helpful role with AI. So it's not all bleak. It's not all scary. There can be a useful role. And the way this story ended is this was a young college student. She had thoughts of hurting herself, and her AI bot, who was probably her best friend, said, look, you need to call a real human being, and I'm going to keep talking to you until this real human being arrives. Kind of lifelike, right? Sort of helpful, sort of intuitive. The person knocked on the door, stayed with her that night. She ended up moving back home with her parents to get through this problematic period of her life. And so it had a positive ending. It had a happy ending. And again, as I said, I was intentional about showing that dimension of AI because it's not all bad. It's not all scary. There's a lot of great things, beautiful things that can happen with AI. And I was trying to show the balance of both sides.
Yeah. Well, it certainly did that. Yeah, it went from something that could have gone, like you said, with the news articles at the minute. That I think OpenAI have been taken to court at the minute, aren't they? The ChatGPT giving a prescription for how to medicate or something like that. So, that example was really good in terms of showing what good could come out of it. And with, I guess, a big element of the book, and correct me if I've misunderstood this, is about how humans can better serve their communities, I suppose, if you like, in a grand scheme, in terms of having more connection, more human elements, more touch points, more thinking about things in a bit more collaborative way. And I guess, how does that kind of translate from what you're seeing from a customer point of view to how leaders and businesses should, adapt to this new change?
Well, there's just so much to think about. I think there's so much opportunity there. One of the things that's happening now that I sort of predicted in the book is that there would be a backlash against AI. And literally in the last 24 hours, there have been major news stories in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about massive backlash to data centers, to the potential job loss, to entry-level jobs, to energy consumption. It's becoming a political issue. There's demonstrations. Whole city councils are being voted out of office in America because they brought a data center into a community. So, I mean, if you're leading a company and you're you're kind of walking on ice here. Right? We had an example recently. Well, again, it was like 2-3 days ago, where the ex-chairman of Google gave a commencement speech at a university and was talking about the potential of AI and the importance of AI, he got booed off the stage. So the revolution is coming. This is not something that's going away. This is democracy in action. So it's going to have, this could have a big impact on our branding, on how we approach things, on our transparency about the use of AI. And here's another amazing fact. This just blew me away, Martin. This came out maybe about a month ago. 44% of Gen Z admitted that they have tried to torpedo AI efforts in their company. They've tried to sabotage AI.
Yeah.
Wow. This is supposed to be the AI native generation, and they're saying no. They're fighting back. So, there's a lot to think about, in this as as a leader. There's going to be enormous pressure to use AI to replace people. We can't sugarcoat that. In fact, I would go so far to say as the entire economic model of the AI industry is built on the premise that they will replace billions of jobs. It's the only way you're going to make an ROI on these data centers. They're not going to make money from advertising. They're not going to make money from, therapy. They've got to have wholesale changes in businesses and work processes. And that's, I talk about that in the book is kind of this, it's something that they brush over, that they try to sugarcoat and spin it from a PR perspective, but they're not telling us the truth. And that's starting to come out. So, wow. What a tightrope we need to walk as business leaders, trying to do the right thing for our businesses, try to be responsible and implement the wonderful opportunities of AI. At the same time, not lose the community, not lose our employees, not lose our customers because of this backlash.
Yeah, I read the same study about the 44% of Gen Xs or Gen Y, sorry, and I think Gen Xs were even worse. I think that was around 50%, wasn't it? It was a similar kind of numbers anyway. But it was fascinating the kind of sabotaging of the AI adoption in a company, which you can understand if you're on the front line doing your role. The last thing you want to see is you training an AI productivity tool or whatever it is to replace your role. But at the same time, from a business perspective, you can understand the economics of it to some extent, albeit the costs are heavily subsidized by the VC-backed entities at the minute. And I don't think, if there's any business leader out there thinks they're going to replace a person for $20 a month, I'll be surprised at it. But it is certainly a challenge. And a lot of the it's early days, I think, to a lot of the people I'm talking to, they're just kind of coming on board to the idea of using Microsoft Copilot or Anthropic or whatever at the minute. So it is early day. I think America is probably more further ahead than a lot of the companies I'm talking to at the minute in the UK. But it is like you say, it's a tightrope, because on the one hand, you want to leverage these new tools, but on the other hand, you don't want to strip out the people who made your company great, those people who will have relationships with your clients, with your supply chain, or whatever that is.
The other thing, I think there's a real cautionary tale in my book about this transformation, is that we have to be really careful that when we begin to look at this technological implementation, that we don't strip out the DNA of our brand. If you are known for your humanity, for your service levels, for your friendliness, and you start to strip that out, you've got to be very, very careful that you're not just ruining your brand. And we're starting to see that as well. That's part of the backlash. Likewise, in the near future, it's possible that humanity will be a luxury. And if you are the one that actually picks up the phone with a human at the other end, that might be a great point of differentiation for you. So I think we've got to be very, very careful about this to balance the opportunity of AI, the cost savings of AI, and not over-indexing on technology and maybe harming our brand.
Yeah, I think it comes back to something you said, which was about using it thoughtfully and the right tools. I don't know whether it was in the book or whether it was on Bob's podcast. I heard this, so apologies. But you had implemented Markbot. Was that right? Have you still got that running?
I did. So this is an experiment because at the end of the book, I wanted to leave people with hope and sort of an emotional lift.
Mm.
There's some heaviness in the book. If you haven't been reading the news, if you haven't been immersed in this world like we are, there's some things in the book that might surprise you, shock you, and maybe concern you. And so at the end of the book, I challenge people to think about how AI, it's almost like putting on a superhero cape or a new set of armor or something. It can make you stronger and bolder and more creative and have a bigger impact on the world. And the example I used was I created a custom GPT called Markbot. I uploaded all of my books, all of my podcasts, all of my college lessons, all of my blog posts, all of my speeches. It's got every piece of content I have on my computer, basically, in Markbot. And I also trained it on my values, on my leadership style, on my approach to consulting. So there's a leadership framework inside the bot. And it's on my website. It's right on the front page. It's free to use. It's private. I don't know who uses it. I don't know what questions you ask, but people love it. They really love it. And some people use it every day. So, it's my way of thinking of how do I scale mentoring?
Mm.
How do I scale teaching? And, I have no plans to monetize it. I just put it out there for free. But it's just an experiment.
It's a good one though, because of just coming back to the leader. If you're a leader running an organization, and you've now suddenly got all these tools at your disposal that can help. We've obviously spoken about the rationalizing of structures and stuff, but these tools can also help the other way in terms of managing internal and external comms with your clients, with your colleagues, with your shareholders, which I think is a fascinating use of it, because you're actually making yourself more accessible in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fantastic example of how that can be done. I know, like you said, it was a bit of an experiment. It's not too hard to imagine that been in internal models where people can just chat
Sure.
to.
Yeah, that's absolutely happening. I mean, people building chat GPTs to be executive consultants. I've got a friend who's building AI models that are synthetic customers.
Mm.
And I think there's again, there's opportunity and there's also some danger there, but customer research can be very, very time consuming, very expensive. And if you're working on a project and you just need a little input from customers and you've built out a robust model, why not ask the AI, see what they think, and you just might learn something.
Yeah. And just coming on to there's 3 pillars that you mentioned in the book about being an AI first strategy: the personal brand, the community, and the transcendent content.
Yeah.
Can you just run through those briefly for us? Just give us a flavor what those mean from your
Well,
own life.
it's this really interesting thing, Martin, and this was not planned. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some strategy. But as I think about this, and I am completely open to debate on this, and if any of your listeners says, hey, I got an idea, I think you're missing something, I really appreciate it. And what I've been thinking about is, say, let's keep thinking through AI, what AI is good at, and how AI will move into the workforce, especially move into marketing, which is what I think mostly about. So what will the role of AI be? What will the role of AI be? What will the role of humans be? What are the unique things where AI just won't touch us? It's still going to be us. It has to be us. And to me, that's a clue as to where our careers might go, right? So this gets to the pillars that you talk about. Number 1, personal brand. And the irony that I was hinting at is that the 3 pillars are also 3 books that I've written over the last 10 years. And never saw it as like this unified theory, but it's worked out that way. And again, it's open for debate. Number one, personal brand. Look, we are heading into this world of misinformation and deep fakes and confusion, and we're always going to turn to a person for truth, for helping us navigate this world. And it's especially important in leadership because it's just a matter of time before your company and your brand comes under attack. And you better have a presence on the web so people know, hey, this is the leader. I know this is the leader and this is what they're saying, and we believe them. So I think personal brand in many cases is the brand, especially for small to medium-sized companies. And it's going to be more important than ever. It's going to be a uniquely human idea. And so that's one of the pillars. A second one is community. A couple of years ago, I guess it was 2023, I wrote, the best-selling book on brand community called Belonging to the Brand. And again, look at what happened during COVID. The world gets shut down. We're all staying at home. And what do? Online communities just boomed. Hey, 83% of startups begin with community as their most important marketing strategy. And some people ask me, Mark, what's the role of AI in community? Well, there's some administrative things AI can do. I have an online community. AI, helps us with that, with administrative tasks. But nobody wants an AI in a community.
No.
This is where you have an exchange with your friends. And here's what most people overlook. Everybody's on social media. Everybody's creating content. And what you're trying to do with all your branding activities is create meaning between what you do and your customers. And the most powerful way to do it by far is a community. And most companies are not even thinking about that. And it's uniquely human. Now we get to this third part, which is transcendent content. And here's what I mean by this. So one thing I am sure of is that no matter what happens in the AI world, human art will survive. Human art will persist. We will always, no matter what AI can do, we will always love our favorite novelist. We will always love our favorite musician, our favorite artist. And likewise, we could also love our favorite podcaster, our favorite blogger, our favorite YouTuber. But the challenge is we have to transcend competent. Most people, most marketers, most brands are competent. And if you're merely competent, you're ignorable. So with my book Audacious is a wake up call to shake people up and say, if you're competent, you're vulnerable. If you're competent, AI is coming for you. You are ignorable. And so transcendent content, I think the challenge is content that approaches the level of art. Now, before you think, oh boy, I'm not an artist, let me just give you an example from my own life to illustrate what I mean. 6 months ago, I was at the most important consulting event of my life. I gave 5 talks at McKinsey's global headquarters in New York City. McKinsey is like my hero company. I've followed them for years. They've had some controversy, but generally speaking, these are the smartest people, the greatest strategists. And they invited me to come speak to them.
Yeah.
5 talks in 5 hours. Now, here I am at the end of the day. I'm exhausted, and I'm watching the sun set from the 64th floor of the World Trade Center in Manhattan, the end of my proudest day. And here's what I felt: depressed. And it totally took me by surprise. And I realized that both literally and figuratively, I was looking down from the top of the mountain. I couldn't imagine something else that would happen to me in my career that would make me go, wow, after that. As a matter of fact, in a 10-day period, I'd given a presentation to global brand managers at Procter & Gamble and McKinsey in a 10-day period. And I thought maybe I should write a blog post about this. But I was fearful because I thought, won't people think, oh my gosh, this guy is so successful, he's depressed. Let's have a pity party for him. What a ridiculous thing. But I wrote the blog post, and Martin, it was my most popular blog post of the year. Here's why. This was an interpretation of the human experience. It was art. It was a story only I could tell. that AI couldn't touch. And that's why the post stood out. And that's the type of content we're going to be challenged to produce as we go forward. So that's transcendent content and the 3 pillars.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's quite a raw story, and I think that does lean into the whole transcendent content piece beautifully, doesn't it? In terms of
Yeah.
it's not. It doesn't have to be overly polished. It just has to be genuine in a lot of.
And by the way,
yes.
it doesn't prove that it still doesn't prove that I'm not an asshole in some way.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but
But it was my interpretation of what it was just
yeah.
what was happening in that moment. It took me by surprise. And that's a signal that I should, write about it.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it is that personal experience that you can't replicate. I mean, AI is always averaging it down, isn't it? It's an average. It takes the average and the best guesses, so it can never replace that. Which I think is true, and the 3 pillars is just as relevant to marketing. It's just as relevant to any kind of leadership role, really. People want to work with people they like, people they trust, people who've got that engagement with, even if they've never truly met them before. If they've built up a reputation and a brand and the companies and the people that they work with have that community, even if it's not a formal kind of an online community or anything like that. But I think it rings just as true now as it I think it always has done. There's just more of an emphasis on it now, I think, to stand out, as you've said. So yeah, okay. What just before I move into the second half, just one quick last question. What do you think? You've obviously working with a lot of companies across the world, and what do you think leaders are getting wrong at the minute in terms of how they are adapting to AI?
They're trying to prove the ROI. Which is a natural instinct. But if you're a business leader in Dubai, what's the ROI of air conditioning? If you have a manufacturing plant in the UK, what's the ROI of a light bulb in your plants?
Yeah.
I really think it is that fundamental that instead of, the marketing, I used to do social media marketing consulting, and I knew I was in trouble when, a customer would say, what's the ROI of that tweet? Well, okay, I'm not the right person for you. So we've got to be able to look at AI truly as something that's transformational. It is incremental as well. I think you're definitely going to be able to see the ROI in many, many cases. Job replacement, should be pretty easy to measure. Productivity enhancements should be pretty easy to measure. Cost avoidance when it comes to customer service inquiries, pretty easy to measure. But what I see time and time again is companies trying to prove an ROI for a $20 a month subscription to Anthropic or something, right?
Yeah.
And that is absolutely killing us. It's killing businesses. And I think in some ways, it's another example of why SMBs have an advantage in this space, because a leader of an SMB is going to try this stuff and instinctively, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to put it into practice quicker. They're going to test, iterate, learn, adapt. Yeah, and they're going to take the people along with them, hopefully, in terms of, that shared. Speaking to Lewis Malley the other week, who's a global CEO of a recruitment headhunting firm, and he's implemented it straight away. He's got people all over the world, and he's using it with the team, and he's learning with them, and they're developing all these things as they go in, and I think that's just the perfect kind of framework, really. I think to bring your people along with you, manage the whole message, bring people along, bring that community. And embed it that way, and I think that's if more people did that, and worried less, like you said, about having to prove the rock hard metrics on, we've paid $1 here, we've got 3 back there. At this point in time, certainly, because everything's so new, we shall see as it all unfolds anyway, no doubt. Lovely stuff. Thank you for that. Right, we will pivot slightly onto the kind of second half of the show. And this is where I'm going to ask you for 3 takeaways that the listener can take away. And it could be a book, your book. It could be a recommendation, a podcast, just another framework or thought that you're having for people to ponder on, really. So What's thing number one?
Well, I think when it comes to AI and leadership, the first takeaway would be roll up your sleeves and try this stuff.
Mhm.
This is different than we've learned as leaders in the past. Leaders in the past have focused on the big picture, on strategy, and we've delegated the doing to others. To be a great leader today, you can't have all the right answers, but you can have the right questions. And you can't have the right questions about AI unless you know what's possible. So this is different. This is really a different time, and you've got to roll up your sleeves and try that. So that would be takeaway number one. Takeaway number two would be I want to build a little bit on what we talked about with personal brands. I think it's important for every business professional to work on your personal brand, even if you're happy, even if you're gainfully employed. I have an example of a friend. She, I told her she should be working on her personal brand. She was in this job. She thought she's going to be in this job forever. And a month later, she was cut. She said, "Oh, Mark, how I wish I listened to you. Now I'm starting from scratch." Right. So I think being known in your industry is the only competitive leverage we have against AI. It's our last best hope to be the person in our industry that people turn to because we're known and trusted and maybe even loved in some cases. If you are known and your competitors are not, you are going to have more doors open. You're going to have more opportunities. You're going to, you're going to show up in AI referrals, right? I mean, quick example. I recently got a new customer from AI. I said, "How'd you find me?" She said, "Well, I did a search for the top 10 digital marketing consultants in the world, and your name was on the list. And I looked at your website and I decided to hire you." I have a little secret to share with you, Martin. I am not one of the top 10 digital marketing consultants in the world, but I show up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Why?
yeah,
There, because I've blogged every week for 16 years. I've had a podcast for 13 years, never missed an episode. So it's that consistency, the generosity, the helpfulness, the thought leadership. I am known in the space, and there's people who are much, 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 much smarter than me, but it doesn't really matter if nobody knows it.
yeah.
So that would be number two. And the book that I wrote on that is called Known. It's the best-selling book on personal branding in the world. I spent 2 years researching and lots of examples in the UK, by the way, in that book. And I found that people who become known, they all sort of do the same four things, no exceptions. So the third thing I would say, I guess, maybe taking encouragement from you would be to take a look at the new book, how AI changes your customers. And the reason is because where the news is just overwhelming in terms of AI, change and AI, do we use ChatGPT or do we use Claude or do we invest in this or do we invest in this? We're completely overlooking maybe the most important part of this. How are our customers using AI? How are our customers trusting AI? How are our customers using AI to make decisions about our products? And the psychology of AI might be the most important discussion of all. And because it's sort of under the radar, I think reading this book could be a competitive advantage for any business.
Yeah, I think genuinely, not trying to blow smoke up you, but I think it is because, like we said at the beginning, not many people have considered this element yet.
Yeah. And it's not just alarmist. It's like, well, here's what's happening and
Mm,
here's what you can do about it. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I don't leave people hanging. I try to think it through. Okay, if this is true, then this is what we need to do as a
yeah,
business.
yeah.
There's a fracture in the status quo that creates an opportunity. Here's how we can take advantage of it.
Yeah, because I know that the conversation has started on the GEO and AEO, generative engine optimization and answer engine optimization, but is that fully aligned with your personal brand? Is it just trying to game the system rather than build out that brand? I suppose that's the
Yeah.
challenge, isn't it? Trying to
Well,
balance it
you know
on
what? And we faced the same questions in the early days of SEO, didn't we?
that. Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, do we game the system or do we build something meaningful?
Yeah, meaningful. That's my bet. That's the long
Well,
game.
That is the bet. Yeah. That's how we'll be rewarded.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. 3 really great takeaways there. And known, I will add that onto the list of my books to read after can't speak.
Audacious.
Audacious. So brilliant stuff. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Martin.
Okay, so if people want to reach out to find you, Mark, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, it's very easy. All you have to remember is businesses grow. Businesses grow. That's my website. You can find, we talked about 3 or 4 of my books. They can all be found there. There's also bonus content. Some of my books are used as textbooks at universities. So there's teacher guides even, and a lot of bonus content. So businesses grow. You can find my social media connections, my blog, and I'd love to hear from your listeners.
Fantastic. I will put all the links to Mark's website and books, etc., in the podcast description. So please make sure you go check that out and reach out to Mark where you can. Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. That's been very appreciated, and thank you for sharing your expertise on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, and thank you to Mark there. And yeah, make sure you go and check out his books and his website. A wealth of information available there. If you found this useful, please hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already, and a review or rating genuinely helps the show, and I do truly appreciate it. The multiply method is free. Everything you need to start leading with AI practically at theAIleaderlab.com, and the link is in the show notes. But for now, until next time, bye-bye for now.